Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are just about there. I feel very humbled to follow Callum there. Some fantastic insights, Callum. Thank you for that. I'm here going to talk in the next probably 15 minutes through to the lunch break, just around digital connectivity and securely sharing a contract of sale. I'm going to try not to make it death by PowerPoint and try and talk through a few examples. But for myself, I've been in the industry for about 15 or just over 15 years now. As you can see, that I've been hanging out with real estate agents too long. That picture was probably taken when I joined the industry. And I've aged a bit since then. But I've worked for 3 major law firms in Australia. I've headed up a conveyancing business. I've been across general practices, and I'm now sat with InfoTrack and poacher turned gamekeeper to some extent, but really have got a passion for what we can do in the property industry, in the property transaction. I know not all of you in the room today are focused on property and aren't property lawyers, but I hope some of the insights I'm going to talk about will assist through the process of what you do in your profession. I'm going to talk about my first example. When I arrived from the UK, probably about 18 years ago, I bought a house as soon as I arrived in Australia. So that was my first experience of going through, and it was here in Brisbane. I'm from Brisbane, and I went through the experience of buying a property. I bought my last house 18 months ago. And to some degree, I'm sad to say the experience wasn't that different. I still had challenges. I still had to go print things out. I still had to get triplicate lots of paperwork and hand those to different parties through the process. And I feel we can do a lot better as a group and as an industry. And I think there's some technology that's available right now that can assist us in doing that. I'm not going to sell InfoTrack products too hard today. I'm going to talk about some of them, of course, but really it's about what can we do as a group of professionals in this industry to help the consumer have a better experience. House prices we've seen have skyrocketed over the last 18 years. We've seen cybercrime, and I think it's in one of the statistics that was talked about this morning, has really come to fruition in the last few years here. And just as recently as 2 weeks ago on the Gold Coast here, a young couple unfortunately lost $39,000 in an email scam. And we need to be better about how we actually manage that as we go forward as professionals. I'll talk about that. But unfortunately, the conveyancing practices to some degree haven't aligned to the other e-commerce products. I don't think anyone here probably consumes music how they did 18 years ago. I don't think anyone probably consumes TV series or stations how they did 18 years ago. And if someone told me 18 years ago I'd get in a random stranger's private car and come home for the pub and they get me home safely, I would have said, you know, you're kidding, mate. But that's what we do. But yet conveyancing practice to some degree, and a lot of it's on us, the providers of services, haven't improved enough. We have had some changes, and credit where it's due to PEXA in their space as an electronic settlement provider. But the reality of that, I believe personally, is due to the mandating of the process in New South Wales and Victoria. And we saw some uptake here in Queensland through the COVID period. Most of you probably know what we're looking at here. I'm from the UK, as I said, and I'm actually going back in December to see my family after, I think it's about 6 years. 6 years is interesting because the period of time we generally think people buy and sell property is about 5 to 7 years. And still, when I look at this as the underground tube station in London, it makes me a bit nervous. I used to live in London for 5 years before I moved to Australia. Now, well, how would it make my wife feel seeing this for the first time without me being there to support her? The first thing I think she would question is she's going to get to her destination. So we get off the plane in Heathrow. That's the bottom left for those of you that aren't aware. And we've got to work out how do we get across into the other side of London. So we need to work out how am I going to get to my destination? Is the journey going to be efficient? Am I going to get off on 2 or 3 tube stations along the way? Will I be provided accurate communication? Or will I just hear someone telling me to mind the gap over and over and over again? Will I be satisfied when I get there? And finally, is it the safest option for my family? So I'm obviously drawing an analogy here to how home buyers come into a property transaction. It's pretty confronting how they look at it and how they're feeling. And we're doing some work at InfoTrack at the moment with consumers to see how they feel through a property transaction. When I first started in a firm 15 or so years ago, and I was the CEO of that firm, I was told by our chairman, it's okay, people will only buy probably 5 to 7 years. They know it's going to be painful. To be honest now, I don't think that's good enough. And I don't think it's good enough for you as professionals to have to go through that same experience. One of the biggest challenges, I think, in that process is we all operate in our own environments through a property transaction. In 85% of cases, give or take, there is a vendor or vendor's representative, there is a purchaser, a purchaser's representative, there's a real estate agent, and then there's generally a bank. It's the one I've probably forgotten to put up there. And through that process, we all kind of operate independently. So what we find in that example, and unfortunately I had an example here recently where a friend of mine who isn't in the industry contacted me and said, Lee, my lawyers just asked me to go to Officeworks, print out 3 versions of the document, sign them, scan them, send them back, send one off to the bank. And he said, isn't this what you do? Don't you work in this industry? And I said, yes, and we're trying to work through it. But there is some challenges in the process. And we know there's some challenges with our insurers, there's some challenges with regulations and all of that. And this is what I'm saying. As an industry as a whole, I think we can do better than what we're doing right now. And wouldn't it be great if, as an industry, we were able to work together, where information was shared from one party to the other? Now, I'm not talking about when you're the vendor's representative sharing that information with the purchaser's representative. But I'm talking about if a contract is signed by a real estate agent, and let's be honest, we know the real estate agent, 1, wants to get listings, 2, wants to sign contracts. Excuse me if there's any real estate agents in the room or relationships with real estate agents. I work with a lot of them, got friends, but that's what they're there to do. But then we end up, depending on which state you're in, either getting someone to prepare a contract further down the track, getting the contract come through to us and it's already gone unconditional. We should be able to navigate the way through this and make it simpler for the consumer. I can guarantee if I went around the room, everyone, just about everyone would say the client is at the center of what you do. And it doesn't matter what practice of law you're doing. I'm not just talking about your fiduciary duties as a lawyer, but I mean putting the client at the center of what you do. And in doing that, that basically establishes your reputation. If a client has a good experience, they go and tell 1 or 2 people. If they have a bad experience, they probably tell 3 or 4 people. So if you're putting the client at the center, you know you're building great relationships. That can be relationships with the client and their families and friends and colleagues, et cetera, or it can be people that refer you the business for that client. And people have different networks. Certainly, I know in the law firms I've worked with, we've had networks of relationships that referred us business. Technology shouldn't be seen as something that is scary. It should be seen as something that is an enabler to help you generate better relationships and better client service. When I looked at some of the statistics from this morning, what I was really pleased to say is most people of the survey there wanted to embrace technology more. The challenge was finding time to do it. And I think that's probably the reality of most of our businesses. So what we end up doing is doing what we've done for a period of time, and it's working, so I won't actually take the next step. But I honestly feel that we're at a point in time where for professionals in the property transaction journey, we should be able to take on board some of the changes to minimize the potential fraud in a property transaction, provide the client comfort so they know that they can actually provide us with data once and that flows through the process, and get get real-time updates through that process. And that's what I'd just like to take you through in the next few slides into the lunch break, is just some of those solutions that are available right now. I'm not talking about blockchain. I'm not talking about buying property with cryptocurrency. I'm not talking about gamification of the property market, things that I have heard a bit about, but I'm pretty sure they're quite far off at the moment. Maybe you can go and read some of the stories in the States and they're changing, but here, what we're doing right now is some of this technology that's available. So when I break connectivity, legal contracts going through a secure and connected process, I really look at 4 pillars. The first is that of efficiency. Second is visibility and accuracy, enhanced communication and collaboration, and finally, security. And obviously, again, one of the statistics talked about this morning was the cybersecurity concerns. What you're looking at on the page, for those of you from New South Wales right now, is a agency agreement. So when the agent goes to see the vendor to sign them up for a new listing, this is what they have available right now. The little box there is a QR code, and we all know we're familiar with QR codes. If an agent scans that, that information gets pulled from that listing form there, goes to a landing page, which is within the InfoTrack property suite. The agent then asks the vendor which lawyer or conveyancer, being in New South Wales, are you working with? And they're able to start almost like a Google typing that name of that lawyer in, and it will pre-populate the information. And then it will send an introduction to that vendor to the law firm. The law firm can then choose whether they want to accept that or not. And at that point, the vendor is provided with a couple of questions to answer. Is there a swimming pool on the property? Some basic information to enable an introduction to the law firm. That information is pushed back to the lawyer. The lawyer is able to accept that information and start a matter in their practice management system. Or, worst case, and it doesn't really worry me, they're able to phone that vendor themselves and say, hi, I'm going to represent you. I've got the information. Either is better than what happens today, which is that agency agreement gets signed, and maybe around 5 days later, the law firm is able to make contract. The property's probably already on the market. Unfortunately, that does happen. We know that in New South Wales, although it shouldn't. So that's something that we're looking at doing and building efficiency. Last week in New South Wales, there were 720 odd of those signed by real estate agents and vendors. And 26% of the people that signed those scanned that QR code. That's driving efficiency into the workflows and providing a better experience for the consumer as well as us, the professionals. When I ran my conveyancing business, still one of the biggest challenges was settlements. Whether you were waiting on the banks, whether you were waiting on rates adjustments, whether you were waiting on the consumers involved. Yes, that has moved on leaps and bounds, and credit where it's due to PEXA and what they've done in the marketplace. But still, a lot of us, we know, want to be able to outsource that work as we did prior to electronic settlements. Settle It is a product within InfoTrack that has done about 70,000+ transactions, has a client satisfaction score of 4.94 out of 5, which is pretty good. But most importantly, it provides up-to-date and real-time updates in one environment. So you're able to go to that environment, have communication messages coming through regarding that settlement, and they're real-time because we've built APIs that link with PEXA. So it enables you to outsource that work if you wish to do so up to the point of settlement and getting real-time updates through that process. Those of you from Victoria, and I've tried to sort of spread this around because I know that everyone's come from across the country, will know that we need a vendor disclosure before we can list the property. A Section 32 needs to be attached to the contract for the vendor to list the property. We built some smarts in a smart form in Victoria whereby the lawyer can share some information, a questionnaire with the consumer, and the consumer can actually start to go through that with a smart form that sits behind it, which works out if you've said no to this, move to this question. You've said yes to this, can you upload a pull certificate? And what we're then able to provide the lawyer at the end of the process is a summary that says Lee completed 19 of the 21 questions. These are the 2 he didn't do. That information gets pushed back into the practice management system. And Lee, as the lawyer, is able to create the Section 32 and send that back to the vendor to sign, and then off to the agent to list the property. So again, we're trying to use the information that the vendor can provide once in an efficient manner, integrated back into your practice management system to deliver a better solution to everyone involved in that process. And finally, security. So Secure Exchange is another product that sits within InfoTrack. Last month in July, we had we usually get between 9,000 and 10,000 consumers in Secure Exchange month to month. It's a secure platform where you can share confidential information, you can sign documents, you can share contracts, request contracts, et cetera, et cetera. My concern, I guess, looking at it is though, we had 35,000 new listings in July, plus the 70,000 that are already on the market in July. So there's 100,000 properties being listed right now, and only 9,000 of them are using secure platforms. We need to ensure, and if there's one takeaway today, please, we shouldn't be sharing confidential or bank account details via email anymore. We just can't do it. It's that there's services in place now, and more than happy at the InfoTrack stand to have a conversation about how you can do that very easily. And again, all of these services integrate into practice management systems. What we know now, consumers look at us and they don't, who last scored 2 on an Uber travel trip? Don't think anyone does anymore. It's either 0 or it's 5. That's what we do. And that's what we're seeing come through on reviews on the internet now. We've got to aim for the 5-star ratings. Because although people come to us and then some of our products haven't digitized or moved into technical solutions as they should, people are still looking for reviews online. If you can provide client satisfaction through flexibility, comfort, a knowledge that they're able to share information with you and that moves through the process, most people are going to be pretty satisfied at the end of that process. And they're going to be referring you to friends, family, and colleagues. And they're also going to be looking for repeat business and coming back to you at the end of the day. I know we are going into the lunch break, so I just wanted to finish with this, that there's a lot out there around technology, and it's, as I saw in the survey results this morning, it's about time. Don't try and do it all. Pick one thing in your business that you believe could drive efficiencies if you changed. That could be something as simple as just using Secure Exchange to share bank details. It might just be something that's very simple. Focus on that. Come and ask us or your other information and broker providers about how they can help you do that. Try it for 1 month. And at the end of the month, judge whether it's been successful or not. And if it hasn't, drop that and try something different. But if it has, work out how you can build that into part of your processes. Maybe give yourselves a break for a month and then try it again. Pick something out. And that is how you will develop digitisation and connectivity within the property market right now. Thank you for your time this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.